We're pretty close. At least what I've observed so far.
Super affordable. You were in a good mood. That's why I thought you were there. That's why I was there.
All right, good evening. Thanks for being here. I am Mr. Wilbur. I'm the activities coordinator slash athletic director here at the Maltese. To honor your time, honor our presenters' time, we'll go ahead and we'll get started. Caitlin, if you want to advance. Just to talk about kind of the format of the evening, with it being such a smaller group, we will probably just stay in here, and it should be kind of informative night for you. I'd encourage you guys to engage, ask questions. That's how you learn about this process, and there will be plenty of questions, I'm sure, kind of going through your heads as you hear from several of our speakers. So we have Brad Wackler from Lewis Rice, who will kick us off. And then we've got Anna Girdwood here from Lindenwood University, and they'll talk through some eligibility stuff for Division I and Division II. And then we have some health coaches that are gracing us with their presence and giving up some valuable time here after probably a busy signing season for them. And then we have some former collegiate athletes that they're going to speak on their experience and let you know what that looked like from their perspective. And then we have a couple parents that we're going to finish the night with. And one of our parents here, Mr. Rusthoven, has kind of served in just about every role through this whole process. So he kind of has a unique perspective for you because not only is he former AD, but he is also a college athlete, college coach, and now his son just signed with Central Michigan for golf. So he just lived the process. So hopefully this will be a really informative night for you. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and kick off with Brad Wackler.
appreciate it. So Central Michigan, huh?
That's what you want.
I spent 8 years there. Yeah, it was Mount Pleasant. Yeah,
Fire too.
not a whole lot there, so you shouldn't get in too much trouble. Hey, welcome. I'm pleased to be here and kick it off. I have there's a lot of slides, but I'm not necessarily going to go through everything because I know we're under a little bit of a time restriction. I don't want to keep everybody, and I definitely don't want to go way over by a lot of time. So I did tell Seth that he feel free to share my PowerPoint, give you a little bit more information, and then for me, if anybody has any questions or has any follow-up after the meeting, even if it's not tonight, you want to reach out by email, totally fine. I've had some parents do that already, some other presentations we've done, and happy to answer any questions after the fact. So a little bit about me. I've been around college athletics for 20 plus years now. Spent 6 years as athletic director in Lindenwood, working with Anna, and then before that was 8 years at Central Michigan. And so been at Division I, II. Haven't been at the Division III level, but have a lot of friends who have. So certainly have some good ideas and concepts about how this process works and some of the things that you should look out for. I think it's really helpful to have coaches here because they can tell you specifically what they're looking for. I have some overviews and some high level ideas just from being around coaches for a really long time. But as coaches, certainly recruiting process know exactly what they're looking for, so very helpful to have them here tonight. I did bring with me, I know we're kind of going out of order a little bit, a couple of my colleagues who are far better athletes than I ever was. So I did bring them with me to help kind of shed some light on the process itself and kind of jump in on a couple of key topics. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves really quickly, just so you can get to know who they are.
Hi everyone, my name is Allison Knopf. I'm an attorney at Lewis Rice as well. I played college softball at Texas Tech. I'm originally from St. Louis, so I know the whole athletic sphere of St. Louis as well. Was recruited down to Texas for softball.
My name's Ryan Cruz. I'm first year associate at Lewis Rice grad. I played college soccer at the University of Notre Dame, graduated 2019. So I'm here to kind of share some of my experience.
So we are, while we're attorneys, we're probably some of the coolest attorneys you'll ever find. So we are, me certainly, and I'm a non-traditional attorney, right? I've never in a million years thought I'd be back working in a law firm, but it's been a great experience for me, and certainly given me an opportunity to start a sports advisory consulting practice and also really work hard to grow our higher ed practice in general. And so, but we are a firm that really promotes the hiring of student athletes. We have a lot of student athletes at the firm that play collegiately, obviously for a lot of good reasons. Is student athletes are incredibly well-rounded, work very hard, very diligent, time management, work as a team, all those things that you like to say. So we really emphasize that during the hiring process. So am I talking to somebody in advance? All right, advance. Well, yeah, thank you. You keep going. And go one more. There you go. Okay, so one of the things that I want to talk about is certainly there's obviously, as we all know, there's multiple divisions, right? It's not just about Division I. We all kind of think about that and think about, we want to be a Division I athlete. And certainly Ryan and Allison had the opportunity to be a Division I athlete. Allison had a little bit more of a roundabout way of getting there in terms of going through the JUCO ranks for a year, but ultimately everybody wants to or thinks they are a Division I athlete. And as I tell people, and I don't mean this to sound overly direct, although it kind of is that you're as good as the people who are recruiting you, right? So if you're getting recruited by a lot of Division I coaches, then you probably are a Division I athlete. If you're not, then you might not be a Division I athlete, or you might be getting under-recruited and you have to get more exposure. So there's a lot of different opportunities out there. We have some great Division II and III programs here with us today that have a lot of advantages and a lot to offer. So as we kind of look at the different divisions, and again, not going through it in a lot of great detail, we all know what Division I is, right? And Division II, our motto was life and balance, right? Is that what it's called? Something like that? Yeah, a few years ago, right, when we were in Division II school. And it was you know, they really focused on the balance between being an athlete and being a student. And so that was kind of their motto. And then Division III, obviously a much different model. Still high performing, high level student athletes, but really focuses on the academic side, certainly. So a lot of differences, but again, my point is there's a lot of different opportunities. So if you go to the next slide, please. And then there's, if you go down and as we kind of go down the list, I don't know as much about it, but I will speak on it just for a minute. Is that you got your NAIs, you got your junior colleges, again, other opportunities to play. And so some may want to go to a certain location, and that's the school there, and that might be the school that was first one to get on that person. I heard a story not too long ago that one of my friends had a kid that was being recruited, and they had a lot of different offers, Division I, II, all the way down, and they ended up going to Division II school because they said that was the coach that first contacted me, and that coach that showed me essentially the most amount of love. And so, and it's the one that they made the most connection with. So, you know, not necessarily just about the fact that you got a Division I offer, it just might not be the right fit. So, as you kind of look at it, different routes, is again, NAI is a little bit more, they're starting to get a little bit more control in what they do. They're trying to model a little bit after the NCAA. It used to kind of be the Wild Wild West a little bit, especially from a compliance standpoint. They're getting a little bit more controlled in how they do business, which is a really good thing. Junior colleges, certainly, again, if you feel like you were a little bit under-recruited, then maybe junior college is the direction for you. I think I'm going to let Elsa just speak to her experience real quick, because I think it's a really good case study.
So, as Brad alluded to, sometimes you are under-recruited, sometimes grades are a factor, or injuries. Sometimes you go to junior college to get back to a playing level. But for me, I had 3 great offers out of high school, but didn't love them enough and went the JUCO route and spent a year in Butler, Kansas, if anyone's been there. It's a feeder school, essentially, for the Big 12, some SEC schools as well. So go there with the underlying knowledge that you're going to go to a big school within a year or two. Loved my time there, and it was effective. So for some people, that's the route to go.
Butler, Kansas makes Mount Pleasant, Michigan look like the metropolis, right? And then the other option is, which we were, and Lindenwood is incredibly familiar with, is the club sport model, right? It's like non-traditional sports, but still compete at a fairly high level, whether it's we had rugby and ice hockey and all these other sports that you probably didn't even know was a collegiate sport. So there's some opportunities to play beyond the high school level. It's some more what I would say niche sports. You can go on to the next slide. And again, not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but as you kind of look at it, as being a student athlete is really hard, right? And I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from being a student athlete. That there's so many great qualities of work that you gain or experiences that you gain as a student athlete, but it's really hard. It's a super time-consuming, dedicated process. I'm sure if your kid went through it and you went through it at the collegiate level, it's not easy. And I think one of the things that again that you think about is being able to balance your schedule. I went to school, did okay, never was a student athlete. I couldn't imagine, throwing one more thing on my plate and having to deal with it. So there's a lot that comes along with it, but it teaches you some great skills and it really helps you along the way. I told the story before, but I've heard again another friend of mine who had one of their friends was being recruited, went to an ACC school to swim, and highly competitive, highly successful. ACC has really, really good swimming and diving. Got there and be like, this isn't for me. This is way too much. I can't deal with it. And they ended up walking away from it because it was just something that they said, hey, I want to be just a college student. I don't want to work through all this stuff. And again, I think their love for the sport fizzled a little bit. But so when you kind of talk about time management skills at D1, 2, 3 level, again, we got a slide for each, but we'll kind of flow through just from a time perspective. You got to think about the academic side of the house. You got to think about the community service that you have to put in or that you're asked to put in, that you should put in. You gotta think about the obviously the practice time, the game time, this class time. But again, I think student athletes can speak to it a little bit better, so I'm gonna turn it over to Ryan and Mike Fungus for thinking about what it's like to be a student athlete at Notre Dame, which again, it's a kind of a continuum. I went to Michigan, so, but I think we get along fairly well, and especially Michigan better.
I don't want to touch on the last comment there, but in terms of time management, I think the most important thing as a high school student you should know is that your time management skills need to be worked on now. College coaches that talk tonight will explain that. That's something that they look for. And once you get to college, it's going to be a very important thing for your success in the field and the classroom. At Notre Dame, every single minute of my day was usually accounted for in terms of class, study time, and practice. So I was able to build some skills in high school to help me adapt when I got there. So I guess my biggest advice to a high school student wanting to play college athletics is just try to strengthen those time management skills as well as you can.
Can you talk about your experience with high school?
Yeah. So I had a unique experience in terms of my soccer career. I moved to Kansas City to play for Sporting Kansas City's development program. Moved there on my own. Guys had an apartment. I was kind of living well when I was through high school. That helped with time management part in terms of I was basically in college at the age of 16, but I think even in a normal living situation in high school, kind of developing time management for every hour of your day is going to pay dividends.
So, if you want to progress, if we can kind of go through the next two. I mean, Division II, Division III, again, your time management is still obviously got to be spot on. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still practicing, you're still competing, and you're still expected to go to class, right? So it doesn't necessarily change. Some of your commitments may be lessened, but ultimately, you still have to have those same skills as a D2 or D3 athlete or an ILA athlete or a JUCO athlete, so it doesn't really matter. You want to kind of advance on the slides. Okay, so again, I am generally here to be a positive influence. It's not like I'm here to be a negative kind of or a naysayer or anything along those lines, but I do want to talk about the numbers about what does it mean to be a student athlete and how it's not easy, right? I mean, it takes a lot of commitment to get there, and so when we kind of talk about the different levels, it's certainly challenging. Is that you're in a rare breed. You're a rare breed if you have the opportunity to play college athletics, because not everybody gets that opportunity. And so as you kind of look at the numbers, and I like empirical evidence, and so as you kind of look at the numbers, you can see, hey, you know what? If you get the opportunity to play at the next level, you are special from that perspective, because not everybody does get that same opportunity. So if you go to the next slide. And so again, not necessarily the easiest to see, but we can share this data with you. But if you look at the estimated probability of competing in college athletics, so if you look at men's sports down to women's sports and look at the number of high school participants, and then the number of NCAA participants and the overall percentage. So if you see the overall percentage, most sports are well under 10%, right, of those going on to play. Specifically, if you look at overall to NCAA, if you look at the percentage of D1, D2, D3, you can see where those numbers fall as well. So you can see, if you look at a sport like women's volleyball, for instance, all the way down to the bottom, second from the bottom, 1.2% go on to play Division I. Right, so obviously the numbers aren't great. So if you're in that stratosphere, then good for you. But I think ultimately, if you look at it, most of them fall somewhere in that kind of below 10%. Now, if you look at some of the sports like hockey's a little bit it's misleading because there's not as many programs, there's not as many student athletes, so the percentages are going to necessarily be a little bit higher. But generally speaking, the percentages are pretty low. So having that opportunity, again, it's a really special one. You go to the next slide. Then it gets even worse when you talk about, hey, I want to be a professional athlete. I mean, we all kind of grew up with those aspirations of being a professional athlete. As you can see, the numbers go quite a bit down when you look at the ability to go from being an NCAA athlete to a professional athlete. even when you look at baseball, baseball's a little bit misleading as well because baseball has a robust minor league system, and you can sign a major league contract when you're in the minor leagues. So that's why that number's around 10%. But generally speaking, if you look at basketball, 4%, football, 4%. So it's obviously that's why school is so important, right? Most people are not going to go on and play professional sports. All right, next slide, please. All right, so we are in a new era of college athletics, and it is ever changing, and there's a lot that is going on with the transformation of college athletics at the national level. A lot that we still don't know what it's going to look like. College athletics is never going away, so nobody needs to worry about, college athletics is still going to be here, it's still going to be the same engine that it is, but it just might look a little bit different to how things shape up, especially at the Division I level. So if you want to go to the next slide, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because we have coaches here, so that's their expertise in terms of what they look for. But I do know is, again, one of the things I do want to point out is that the way you hold yourself out as a student, as a person, is really important to coaches. They want to recruit high quality kids to their program that are going to add value, right? That add value on the field of play, but also add value in the classroom, in the community. Because frankly, they have a program to uphold. They don't want to be embarrassed, right? They don't want to have to deal with a bad culture. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. So it's not just about the numbers. Obviously, your performance does matter, but it's how you hold yourself out. So when you're interacting with coaches, that's a big component. Okay, being professional, being honest, being having integrity. That's really important. And we'll talk about it in a minute. Social media may be the best worst invention that's ever happened. So we'll talk about that in a second. But you go to the next slide, please. And then again, I think when you look at what our athletes are considering, and it kind of as an athlete yourself, is looking at the competitiveness of the program, playing time, what type of athletic age you receive. But I think again, is when I want to spend time on for just a minute, is the subjective aspects of how does the culture fit me as a person. I think that's really, really important. I've seen people who go to a program and culturally they're just not a fit for whatever reason. Okay, and that's okay. And they move on, and with the transfer portal, they're making it really a lot easier to move on, which is in some ways unfortunate, but it is what it is. But so you really have to dive into the culture of the program. How do you mesh and gel with the coach? How do you mesh and gel with the other student athletes when you go on a visit? So I think you really need to dive into that to make sure that it's the right fit, because every program is just a little bit different. Okay? Again, our coaches will talk to that in just a minute. You go on to the next slide, please. What I said is, again, the social consciousness piece, that's really important. Factoring in, academic achievement, how you view, college is going to go a long way. That's again why we hire so many student athletes, because we see so much value in what they bring. All right. Again, when I talk about time management, working as a team, collaboration, those are all really important traits. And so most employers have a strong preference in hiring a student athlete. So if you go out and you're going on a job interview, they see, hey, you're a student athlete, there's a much better opportunity for you that may lie ahead. So you see Enterprise which is probably the most well-known in terms of their emphasis on hiring NCAA student athletes, or student athletes in general, because of just those factors. So keeping that in mind when you go to school, you're going to get an education, because if you saw the numbers, most people are not going to be going on afterwards. So keep that in mind. And then, for me, the community service is always a big, really important piece. Whether you're in high school now, or whether you're in college, or whether you're in the real world, is being active and engaged in your community, being a positive influence, using your personal brand to better the community which you live is really important. Okay, next slide, please. All right. So really quickly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm not going to lecture on it. It is what it is. I use it. We all use it. Social media is incredibly beneficial. I actually heard a quote today as I was listening to a podcast that said, social media is not the problem. Sometimes it's the way that we react to social media. We get so caught up with the lives of others. We're so dialed into it, and we spend so much time on it. And so it's kind of our psyche with how we react to it. But ultimately what you post on social media is going to matter. That's going to follow you. That is not something that you can necessarily just go back and delete. People are doing background checks now and going in and looking at people's social media accounts when they go and hire people. So you can do a full social media run, and we, in my experience, we've not hired some people because it's going to come back as a negative hit. So you got to be very careful with how you utilize it. Now, again, I think it's a really important tool, especially for a college and university to promote some of the stuff that they're doing. And for student athletes, especially in the world of NIL with personal brand, I think it's a great tool to utilize as long as we're doing it the right way and just being responsible with it. So, and again, to a certain degree, it's coaches and administrators' worst nightmare in terms of what are you posting on social media and how you're interacting with others. So that's a word of caution. Just make sure that you're smart about how you're managing your social media accounts. Next slide, please. All right, legal challenges. Again, I think you can't have an attorney up in front of them and not talk about some of the legal challenges. But we are in an interesting environment, an environment that we've never been in before as an organization. But every organization adapts and changes. You have to, or you're going to die, right? You're not going to survive. And so when you look at it, it's kind of, we've all probably heard of the Bannon case, which that was kind of the EA Sports case. That was the precursor to NIL. And that was kind of what got everything started in terms of profiting off the name, image, likeness. And we're looking at it in an image on a video game. And then going through the Alston case. Alston now provides you the ability to provide benefits above and beyond cost of attendance to promote or to provide, what's the limit? $6,000. You have about $6,000 so you can provide now for essentially academic achievements and some other things that you weren't able to provide before. It's great, and it's also it creates a little bit of a separation between some of the schools because most of the schools, I would say most schools don't have the ability to give that full amount to every single student athlete. That's the challenge where some, like the Ohio State's, Michigan's, Notre Dame's of the world, they can, but ultimately most cannot, so that creates a little bit of a divide. But again, it's still an opportunity now for student athletes to go in and earn some additional dollars. The big piece that's out there now is some potential legislation, some cases that are challenging whether student athletes should be considered employees. That is happening significantly. It's significantly more so in California than anywhere else, but that could be a game changer as well. It's still probably a couple of years out, but whether they're, the ability to consider now student athletes as employees, that could also have some serious impacts. Now, I think what student athletes are not thinking about though too is, so if somebody drops too many balls, do I get to fire them? If they're not performing at the level that they can be performing at, does it change the dynamic there? So those are again some of the case laws. And again, there's a lot of challenges that are going on right now that are going to impact how some of this stuff is decided. So next slide. Okay, and so I would be remiss to not talk about NIL, right? NIL is a thing. It obviously is a big deal. Again, it's a big deal for some schools and not such a big deal for other schools. With the ability to create a personal brand and use that personal brand for your own benefit. We've helped a couple collectives get started. We're not really in the business of NIL specifically. I am, offering up free consultations. If somebody has questions, I'm happy to answer those. But it's really not our business model on that side of it. But I will say is that it's a game changer, right? And I think in a lot of ways it's a really good benefit that you now have. But ultimately, it begins creating a further separation between some of the schools. And so, ultimately, you can utilize your personal brand to make money, right? And it's pretty, some are utilizing it really well, and some don't really, that's not really a priority of those. I mean, we just saw some of the stuff that's happening right now as a Florida quarterback who's not going to Florida anymore. He was promised $13 million from now until he graduates by a collective, and then they essentially walked back on that, so he left. So I think what you're seeing now is some collectives not able to live up to their end of the bargain, and so ultimately it's changing the landscape quite a bit. But most people are not going to get that, right? some of the stuff that we worked on is more community service based. So we'll pay somebody $15,000-$20,000. They're going to go and service these 3 or 4 charities, and that's really kind of some of the model that we built. But again, most people are going to go to school, be a traditional college student athlete, and not have the opportunity to make an 8-figure income, right? But some of that stuff is out there, which is mind-blowing to me. Again, I'm kind of more of a traditionalist when it comes to all this. I think going to school and having your school paid for and being able to play sport, I think that's enough. But ultimately, that's not the environment that we live in anymore. So if you have any NIL questions specifically, you want to ask me those, I'm just happy to answer them. The law continues to evolve. The NCAA had kind of stepped out of it for a while. They're starting to step back into it a little bit more. So ultimately, hey, we gotta, kind of be mindful of what that looks like, because at the end of the day, we tell ourselves that it's not a recruiting inducement, but I think we're fooling ourselves too. It's like, it essentially is, we're not allowed to say is that we're going to give you this money to come play for us, right? Or play a specific sport, play for this institution. But that's what it is. I mean, it's a recruiting inducement. Technically, we're not saying this is somewhat ridiculous, but that's a conversation for another day. There's one go on the next slide. I mean, keep going. Okay. And we talk about again your personal brand. You see some of them that do it really well as you kind of develop your brand and what it looks like. And I think, but again, I think not really excited of the originality, being who you are, and not always being like mindful of, I need to go out and make the most NIL dollars that I can make. I mean, it's really about your college experience and making sure it's the right fit, not just who's going to pay the right money, the most amount of money. But at the end of the day, I think creating your own personal brand is a value. You see some that do it really well, and that's where social media can become really beneficial. Go to the next page. Slide. All right, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this either because Anna's going to cover the recruiting process. So if you go next slide, next one. There you go. So this is, just want to talk about this. The recruiting process is starting earlier and earlier than it ever has. Okay. So I mean, you've heard the famous stories of John Calipari offering a 7th grader full scholarship to play basketball in Kentucky. In some ways, it's not a joke, right? Is that the recruiting process is happening sooner than it's ever happened, whether it's direct or indirect contact. I mean, there's certain rules that you still need to follow, but ultimately, it's happening early, and so you need to be proactive in how you're being recruited, and not necessarily just wait for a coach to reach out to you. Find ways to get to showcases, get to exposure camps, whatever it might be, to get yourself seen, get video out there. Find ways to promote yourself. When we're talking about your personal brand, that's a big part of it. Is some coaches really like the uniqueness of what you do and how you do it. And I'm gonna end it. I'm gonna let these two talk about the recruiting process a little bit. Not putting them on the spot, but just in terms of what they went through, what their process was like, and kind of the uniqueness of the recruiting process from their perspective.
So yeah, I think the recruiting process for everyone's different, it's very unique. I started fairly early, and I think the most important thing for me to talk about that is just kind of how to handle college coaches in terms of when they're reaching out to you. I think how you present yourself when they call is kind of very, very important to college coaches. So, like Ross was talking about, the contacts are coming earlier and earlier during freshman year, sophomore year, later student year. And so I think what I try to do when I was going through this process was just have questions available for the coaches, kind of show them interested in the process, kind of show them interested in the school, and just kind of try to stand out in those interactions once college coaches start coming. So like Brent's talking about, the communications are going to come, so kind of having a game plan when you're going to actually receive those calls, receive those emails is really important. I thought that helped me a lot when I was going through my process.
My process was a bit different. Obviously, I went the JUCO route, so I was, as I said earlier, a bit under-recruited, but that's because I waited on my heels and was a little bit late in the process. I started reaching out to coaches about end of sophomore year, and that heated a lot of, we've already So if that's not enough advice to say start early, then I don't know what is. But softball, as you can see, is actually the second one out there for starting ninth grade or earlier. And a lot of coaches have committed girls at about 7th or 8th grade. So that for me was a killer. But once I started getting some offers, I realized that I needed a couple more years to get a true offer for what my abilities were. So, but I think the best thing that you heard tonight was from Ryan that you should do something to stand out. One of my friends at Tech told me that she emailed our coach with music in the email. I don't know how she did this, but it was smart. And the email, the music was "Take a Chance on Me," which is way too corny, but it worked. And she went to Tech, and she was one of our best hitters slash first baseman there. So if that's not proof enough, then I don't know what is.
All right, so I went way over my time, so Anna's giving me some nasty looks at her, so I'm gonna kind of wind it up. One of the things I do want to just end with is that parents in the room, thinking from an AD perspective, is I've got a lot of calls over my years from parents who are angry about certain situations. I was kind of like, okay, I have heard from your kids, so let's start there, right? And then we'll kind of go from that perspective. But I will say, be involved. Certainly, be involved in the process, right? You want to make sure your kids going to the right spot, going to be taken care of. You've invested a lot of time, energy, and effort into it. But also let them be independent too in making that decision, because ultimately they need to make sure that it's the right culture for them and that's the right fit. And I think it's hard, really hard, and I'm sure you'll speak to it. What's that balance, right? What's the balance of being involved versus being overly involved? I think again, some of my frustration as an AD, I wouldn't call it frustration. Some of the experiences in AD of some parents who are overly involved and some parents who are involved to the right amount, the right level, right? They're concerned about their kids' well-being and overall experience. I'm not really interested in talking to parents about playing time, right? That's overly involved. But I think ultimately, I think you have the right to be concerned about whether your kid is acclimating the right way and being treated the right way, and because maybe a lot into it. So I think it's a delicate balance to how that goes. But ultimately, for me, is if I can provide you with any feedback or answer any questions, like I said, I'm happy to do it about the process or about anything else that you might have been thinking about. Again, having been through it for 20 years, and I think a lot of us in the room who have been in athletics can say we've seen a lot. Not a whole lot that phases us. There's not a whole lot of questions that we haven't received. So if you have anything that you want to ask, please feel free to do that either tonight or afterwards. You can always reach out by email. I had coffee with a parent that I presented at another school that had questions about the recruiting process and hoping his kid do that. So I'm always happy to do that as well. So from that regard, I'm going to turn it over.
Thank you. All right, so my name is Anna Gertrude. I'm the Assistant Athletic Director for Compliance at Lindenwood University. I'm going to touch on more of the things that could be happening to you right now. Next slide, please. And the next one. So some of the things I'm going to talk about are directly recruiting, the NCAA Eligibility Center, initial eligibility requirements, the NLI, which is the NIR, and if you have any questions for me after that. So first slide up, please. All right. Thankful to have some good coaches here, so they're going to be able to talk to you more directly about what they're looking for. But the three big things that coaches really do look for are athletics, academics, and character. Obviously, certain sports, if you are a track athlete, you have certain times. If you are a golfer, you have certain, scores. Other things like soccer or basketball, it's less numbered. So you're going to have to reach out to coaches so they can see what you look like athletically. Academically, obviously very important too. scholarships aren't available to everybody. So if academically you're strong, you might get more academic scholarship from universities, which means that coaches can bounce it out a little bit more from there. Character, like we talked about today, social media is a great thing, but very often things that you post on there might be seen by coaches, and that could affect what they're looking for. The big thing is, though, that coaches are recruiting the athlete. They're not recruiting the parents. Yes, they want you to be involved. They want to sell themselves to you, sell the schools to you as well. But bottom line, the athlete is the one they want to hear from. They don't want to get an email from the parents saying, my son is great, my daughter is great, come see my child. They want to hear from the student, because the student is the one that they're going to be dealing with, hopefully for the next 4 years. So as much as the parents are important in the recruiting process, bottom line is the athlete that the coach wants to hear from, because that's who they're going to be dealing with a lot. Athletic scholarship-wise, NCAA-wise, you have Division I, Division II. They do have athletic scholarships available. Division III don't. Not everybody's going to get an athletic scholarship walking into a school. There are other opportunities available. Like I said, academically, different institutions have different academic awards available to them. The better you are academically, the higher the chances that you're going to get a good academic package from whatever school that you're looking to go for. We also talk a lot about official and unofficial visits. Unofficial visits are where you go to the campus and there's no payment involved. So if you're looking to go to a school that's close to St. Charles or St. Louis, it's highly unlikely that the coaches are going to put you up in a hotel room. It's highly unlikely that they're going to try and fly you from St. Charles Airport to St. Louis Airport. These visits are just as important, okay? You get to choose if you want to go on them. You get to visit. Official visits are, and a lot of schools, a lot of coaches don't use them. Official visits are where perhaps they're going to put you in a hotel overnight. They're going to fly you out. They're going to cover some of your expenses to get there. At the Division I level, you are limited to 5 official visits total. So if you're looking to go to 10 schools, you're not going to be able to go on 10 official visits. If you happen to be going on vacation and you're driving past the campus, stop, have a look around. A lot of our athletes as well, when they come on the visits, they don't even go speak with admissions. They don't speak with professors in degrees that they're interested in talking about. They speak to the coach, which is great. They might meet some of the athletes, which is great. But you're also going to be going there as a student. You're also going to want to talk to admissions about what the academic requirements are for that school to get in. So look at the whole big picture and not just the athletic side of things. Next slide, please. So in compliance, I get to talk a lot about the good stuff. Are you going to be eligible to play? Are you going to be eligible to even get into school? So there's a lot of things that can be dealt with early on. Do I have any current high school freshmen or freshman parents in here? Sophomores? Juniors? Seniors? So the good thing is, for you freshmen, we're looking at your grades already. So you might think that you might be able to get away from having not a great freshman year in high school. That's going to impact you, okay? So academically, there are things that you need to think about. The big thing is you need to register. If you're going to look to go to an NCAA institution, is registering with the NCAA Eligibility Center. For the Division I and the Division II levels, they actually certify you to be eligible to compete at the NCAA level. That is separate to getting admitted into the institution. So you might choose to go to Lindenwood, and I'm biased because obviously I know what it takes to get into Lindenwood. You might meet the standards to get accepted into Lindenwood and be a student at Lindenwood. But if you don't meet the NCAA standards, you are not going to be eligible to participate in athletics at the Division I or the Division II level. Okay, and I'm going to talk a little bit further in a minute about what that means. For my freshmen in here, it's not too early to register. You can set up an account now. I do recommend paying because in 3 or 4 years they might jack the price up. Currently, I believe it's around $90 for domestic students. That will get you the account, that will get you the ID number that you're going to use, okay? Really, you don't need to do too much more with it, but for my seniors in here, if you're looking to go to a Division I institution, you can actually get your high school transcript sent now for the end of your junior year to the NCAA now, and they can start processing them. By the time you graduated, you need to have your official high school transcript sent from your school to the NCAA. This isn't coming from you. One of the big things that we find is that come May, you've graduated, you've got your, finished everything, you forgot to ask your high school to send your transcripts to the NCAA. A lot of schools shut down for the summer, so trying to get a hold of somebody to get those transcripts in can take some time. So end of your junior year, get your transcript submitted. End of senior year with your high school graduation on, the school has to send them to the NCAA. Okay, so that's pretty important. The NCAA actually recently did away with requiring an SAT or ACT score. So if you haven't taken one, NCAA-wise you don't need to take one. A lot of institutions have done away with requiring an SAT or ACT score. Lindenwood is currently test optional, so you can choose if you've taken it, if you want to submit it. For Lindenwood, if you've got a really high school GPA, you don't really need the test. If your GPA isn't great, but your test score is really high, we recommend sending it in because that way they're going to look at your academic scholarship option a little bit different. Okay? Next slide, please. So this is where the fun really starts. For my freshmen and sophomores, okay? Basically, you're probably taking the classes that you need to take right now. For those of you that are in your junior year, if you want to go to a Division I school, there's certain requirements that you have to meet by the end of your junior year. So Division I wise, you have to pass, once you've graduated, 16 core courses. The breakdown will be up in a minute, but it's like 4 years of English, 3 years of math, sciences, social sciences, so on and so forth. But to be eligible at the Division I level, you have to have passed 10 of those core courses by the end of your junior year. So this is where your academic counselor comes into play. Hopefully they are aware of what the NCAA requirements are. If they're not, they can go to NCAA online, and that will give you a Division I worksheet or a Division II worksheet. Thankfully, most schools have sent students to NCAA institutions before, so they're very familiar with this. But for my juniors in the room right now, you might want to check with your counselors just to make sure that you've got all of those core courses. If you haven't, we're going to have to work with it. You might need to take some over the summer. For the seniors, if you haven't met that core course requirement, it could end up being a bit of a problem, but generally high schools are able to work with you, and whichever institution you're looking to attend can work with you as well. What's important to also know is that you need to have a 2.3 in those core courses. So if you're getting a 4.0 in football or basketball or soccer or classes like that, good for you. But they don't look at those classes. They look at the English, the maths, and the sciences. You've got to make sure you have a GPA of 2.3 in those courses. Okay? So Division I, 16 core courses, 10 core courses by the end of your junior year, and a 2.3 GPA. Okay? Next slide. So Division II is a little bit different. You still require those 16 core courses, but you don't have to have met a certain amount by the end of your junior year. You do have to have 2.2 in those classes as well. Once again, check with your counselors. Very often, each high school is different. So a high school might have British history in the 1900s that they think is meeting one of the social science courses. But if that school hasn't registered that class with the NCAA, that isn't going to count as a core course. So again, check with your academic counselors. If needed, they can go to the NCAA site. You can reach out to me. I'm willing to help you make sure that you're on track academically. So freshmen and sophomores, keep an eye on those core course requirements. Juniors and seniors, it is very important to get that done. Next slide, please. This is very blurry, but this does give you the breakdown of what those classes are. It is possible to find that online. So if you go to the Eligibility Center, you're able to find that. I think that there might even be handouts that were given with that on there, so that will save you having to try and look at this blurry side. That will have the breakdowns for you in there. Next slide, please. So national letter of intent, I know we've got a lot of football coaches in here, so I think it was last week, football players were able to sign their national letter of intent to go to play at Division I or Division II institutions. Other sports, that window opened up in November of last year. So if any seniors in this room, have any of you signed national letter of intent or no? If you haven't, it's not a problem. It's not too late because the window is basically open all the way through August. Now, the national letter of intent is a binding agreement with the school. A lot of the athletes aren't aware of that and the parents aren't aware of that. So if you get an offer of a scholarship to go to a Division I or Division II institution and you agree to that, they offer you the scholarship, you sign the paperwork, you are locked into that school. It's a great thing. Schools do signing days, they have a lot of publicity, you've committed, you're set, you're locked in. Like I said though, it is binding with that school. Now and again, coaches might leave. They might get a job somewhere else. And you think, well, I signed to play soccer with Coach Anna. Coach Anna left. You didn't sign to play with Coach Anna. You signed to go to that institution. So one of the things that I really want to make clear is, think about the institution that you're going to. Yes, you're going there to play a sport, so it's important to have a relationship with that coach, with the players on that team, and that sport. But look at the school as well. Look at the academics. If you want to go to a school that doesn't offer your degree, that you're going to have to study for the next 4 years, is that really the right fit for you? If the coach leaves, are you still going to want to be at that school? If unfortunately you suffered an injury, are you still going to want to be at that school? Do you want to go to a school that is 30,000 students and the professors don't know who you are? Do you want to go to a school where there's 20 people in a class, where the professor does know you? So there's a lot more things to look into than just the athletic side of it. Look into the school as a whole, the town, the area. Do you want to live far from home? Do you want to live close? A lot more goes into it than just finding a coach or a sport that you're interested in and think that you can commit to that. Next slide, please. I went through that pretty quick because we've got coaches that are going to talk a little bit more about that. So the big thing that I really want to emphasize is the academic component to it, okay? Be aware of those courses, be aware of what you get enrolled in, make sure you get those transcripts sent to the NCAA. That way, they will determine if you're eligible. Each school has different academic requirements to get in. That's why you need to speak to the admissions counselors, speak to the financial aid counselors, find out if there's loans available, find out if you're even going to need loans. It's more than just looking at the sport, it's more than just looking at the coach. It's a big decision because ideally you choose a school that you want to be at for the next 4 years. You get to graduate with your degree. As like Brad pointed out, not a lot of people go pro, but nobody's going to be able to take that degree away from you once you've got it. My contact information is up on there, so like I said, if you have any questions that I can answer for you directly, feel free to reach out. Even if you choose not to go to Lindenwood, I'm more than happy to point you in the right direction and help make sure that you're going to be eligible. All right, who's up next?
We got our coaches up next.
Coaches.
Yeah.
They'll really dig in and tell you what they're looking for. I don't want to just assume that they look at academics, athletics, and character.
I'm Sean Kelly. I'm the linebackers coach at McHenry University, which is a Division II school. It's about 50 minutes away from here. Literally, I go up there from here today. Kind of just talk to you guys a little bit about what we look for in our student athletes and kind of the best way to get recruited to McHenry University. And I think it comes down to, as you're going through your recruiting process, you have to be realistic. I know there's a lot of schools that go out there and they send you guys mass emails. Send you mass emails, hey, come to a camp and everything like that, and you take one look at it and you totally understand, and they send this to everybody, you know, Bell Burns, I guess, and everybody. Well, I think the same thing kind of is said for student athletes. You know, as we are in contact with guys, be it social media, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, you name it, you know, I can't tell you how many mass messages I get, you know, that you can say necessarily the wrong school. So I think that's where it's really important for you guys as you're going through and contacting coaches, not only to be realistic, you know, and I think someone said it earlier, you're gonna get recruited with who's talking to you. You know, so if you have a bunch of Division I schools talking to you, it's probably really good to contact those type of coaches. If you have a bunch of Division II, FCS, Division III, NAI, it's really good to talk to those coaches. But then I think it comes down to, you have to do kind of what Anna was saying, narrow down your search to a point, because there's lots of great colleges in this, you know, in the United States, but it's all depend on what do you want. You want to be based on your major, okay? If I want to be a mechanical engineer, there's a lot of really great schools to be able to go look at being a mechanical engineer, but Henry's not one of them. Probably not a great time to hit me up, like, how's your mechanical engineering program? Not very good. You know, so probably you have a lot better opportunity to be able to talk to other schools that have that. You know, do you want to go to school in a big city? Do you want to go to a school that has all that stuff? You know, what are the things that are really important to you when considering a college? And kind of narrow down those schools, interact with those coaches. I think that's going to be the best way for you to be able to understand, you know, where you want to go when it comes time to do official and unofficial visits or go to camps or anything like that, who you need to talk to and who you can spend the best amount of time. There's nothing worse than talking to a kid that, you know, everyone else in Division II is talking to, and he's looking at us saying, hey, I'm a Division I football player, and then that kid ends up losing out on a whole bunch of great opportunities. You know, so I think that's really the biggest thing is you guys can do as you're going through, because, I mean, yeah, it'd be great for everyone to go play at the highest level and everything like that, but you can still have a very, very good college atmosphere, college experience at any type of school. It's going to really be, your college career is going to be what you make it. If you want to go to a school and get joined into a whole bunch of clubs and be a good, you know, athlete and get a great degree and make a whole bunch of great friends, you can do that anyway. But it's all going to be about whatever makes you happy and wherever you want to go. To me, that's kind of the biggest thing. For us, football-wise, kind of what we look for is we look for more of athletics than necessarily stats. We're not, us personally, I think we're not huge stat guys, so we're not sitting there scrounging SCOtoday.com looking at who had the most tackles or who had the most yards. A lot of it does come down to athletic evaluations for guys, and just kind of seeing guys at camps. I think camps are a really, really good way to kind of get out there and prove yourself and show what you can do. Because, you know, maybe you are someone that didn't get to play a lot as a junior or as a sophomore, and you feel like you have a lot more to offer. Going to camps is really good, but I also think it's very important that you're going to, again, the right camps. You know, where you're going to spend your summer going to every single Division I school within an 8-hour radius, or you're going to go visit a whole bunch of schools that are actually interested in you and get in front of those coaches. Because then it comes down to financial matters as well. So, probably the other thing I'll hit on is social media, because that's the biggest thing that we can look at, excuse me, when evaluating guys and evaluating your character. And the biggest thing I would say about social media for you is your online resume. Anything that you like, you retweet, you post, basically saying, I endorse this. And if you're liking a whole bunch of foul language and other unsatisfactory things, it's kind of telling us exactly what you're all about and who you're going to be when you get there. But if you're on there, on social media, self-promoting yourself and showing how great of a person you are and everything like that, I think that's a really good tool for you guys to be able to use. Anything else to talk about? Anybody have any questions?
Thank you. My name is Aaron Keenan. I'm the head football coach at Washington University, right down the road in St. Louis. I've been fortunate in my career to be a head coach at 3 different institutions. I've been head coach at Division II school, Minnesota State, Mankato, as well as Division III school, obviously, here at WashU and Illinois College. And I spent 6 years at the FBS level at Eastern Michigan University, big rapid in Chippewas. And so I've got experience at all different levels of recruiting and would be happy to answer any questions about the process at the different levels. What I would add that maybe is a little bit different, you know, in my time at Eastern Michigan, We were there 6 years, went to a couple bowl games, had some outstanding student athletes. I would say every one of those student athletes we had, if you asked them what their career goals were, it was to play in the NFL. And we had, fortunate to have two players, Andrew Wiley, who's going to play in the Super Bowl as a right tackle for the Chiefs, and Max Crosby, who's an all-pro defensive end with the Las Vegas Raiders. We had really good players, but the bulk of the players we had are off in their careers right now and finding out what they want to do with the rest of their lives. And so what I think is important, whether you're playing at Washington University or playing at a Division II school or Division I school, it's looking at institutions as a 4-year investment as opposed to a 4-year investment. While it's great to have a dream of playing professional sports wherever you're at, I think you also have to look at the reality of where that institution is going to take you down the road and looking at the degree that you want as you pursue things. So it leads into everything that's been mentioned in what we're looking for in players as recruiters. We're going to look for talented student athletes, right? And so I think it's a great point that where you're recruited is probably where you're going to end up, right? If you're being recruited by a bunch of Division I schools, you're probably a Division I player in that sport. If you're not, it's okay to have a dream, and it's okay to pursue those areas. I had great players at Eastern Michigan that walked on and earned scholarships. They had a dream and they believed in themselves. We had great players who went to junior colleges and believed in themselves, right? Put themselves out on a limb and ended up earning scholarships. But there are also fantastic athletes in all sorts of sports that play Division II football. I was fortunate enough to coach Adam Thielen, who's an all-pro wide receiver with the Minnesota Vikings. He's in year 10 of his NFL career. He was a Division II athlete on a $2,500 scholarship, right? And he had an awesome experience playing college football on a team that went to the national semifinals. Okay? He's a fantastic football player and a fantastic person. I've got great players at Washington University who are pursuing a dream, playing Division III football at non-scholarship level, and winning championships and having just an outstanding experience and are going to go on and do some wonderful things in their lives. And all of those guys went through that recruiting process, figured out the lane that they belonged in, and picked an institution that fit them, and just had an awesome experience. And so don't limit yourself to think I'm only a Division I player. It's okay to have that dream, but make sure that you're pursuing these institutions that are pursuing you as well, that have an interest in you, and find out what they're all about so that you can make an informed decision for yourself. And this is where I think it's important to have parents involved, right? When I'm meeting with a recruit, I want to have parents involved in that process because they ask better questions, right? They know their child really well. And most of them are going to turn those recruits loose, their children, to ask the right questions themselves. And if they're not, then they're going to direct it in the right way so that we're getting all the information out there. I think that's really important for you all as you kind of go through this process. It's a fun process, and I think the last thing I'd leave you with is, if you want to play college athletics, you've got to love it, right? Whether I'm at Eastern Michigan or I'm at Washington University, our players work hard. There's a lot of time invested. I will say this at Division I level, the NCAA allows us to have 20 hours per week with our student athletes. We went far over that with voluntary time with our athletes. Any Division I athlete's going to tell you that. It is a full-time job. And the benefit of playing some of the lower levels is that there is a little better balance in life. And I think because of that, the passion for playing the sport comes out, right? And so what you've got to find is your ability to play the sport that you love in a passionate way and enjoy it, because you're going to have 4 years in college to get that done, and you want to enjoy those 4 years. So good luck with the journey, and appreciate your allowing us to come out and visit with you.
How's it going? I'm Austin Ward. I'm the head sprint football coach at Fontbonne University. Who here's even heard of sprint football? There's a few people. But most of this stuff has already been talked about, so if you want to go ahead and go to the first slide. Just kind of talking about sprint football, these are some of the things I'll talk about, but sprint is around to give more opportunities for athletes that aren't the size to go to a Division II school, a Division I school, So there's always, for the most part, if you want to play college athletics, there's a home for you somewhere. It's just finding out what's a good fit for you and marketing yourself. If you want to go ahead, again, most of my stuff has been talked about. Just kind of what we look for, and this is any coach that I've ever been around and, at any level, any different sport too, not just football specific, but you gotta love the game, like Coach was saying. There's a lot of time, whether you're Division I, Division II, Division III, JUCO athletes. So if you don't have a love for the game, kind of like Brad was talking about, having someone that didn't make it at a Division I school, if you don't love the game, no matter what level you're out at, you're probably not going to be successful. I had a special font that didn't go over.
My special font did not transfer over.
Academics are going to be different at every different level. It's going to be different for institutions. You can get into Fontbonne, which is right across the street from Wash U, but you're probably not going to get into Wash U if you get into Fontbonne. So finding the fit that's right for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. We still have great academics, we just aren't Wash U, so you can get a little bit lower GPA and get into our place. High character, that's been talked about a bunch. There's lots of different ways to judge that. Social media, interactions with people. I had a phone call the other day with a recruit. He was washing dishes while he was on the phone with me. As a college coach, do you think I thought I was very important to me? So I know that was already kind of talked about by somebody else, but when you're going to talk to a college coach, whether it's on a phone, on a Zoom meeting, make sure you're paying attention and actually are engaged in that conversation. And then we want competitors. You can go to the next slide. How can you be seen? We already talked about prospect camps. I kind of agree with Coach. There's many different ones in all different sports. There's a lot of mega camps out there right now. Those are great in my opinion if you want to get your student athlete, yourself, in front of a lot of different coaches. However, it's not as specific. I know when I was in a Division II school, we really wanted kids that we were interested in, or student athletes that we were interested in, to come to our prospect camp so that we could see you doing what you're actually going to do at our institution. At most other places, you're going to run the same drills. There's 900 coaches there. But if you come to someone that's interested in you, you're going to get more one-on-one. You're going to learn if you even like the way that person coaches you. So it's a two-way street, whereas at a mega camp, you're running your 40, you're doing your drills, you're doing your one-on-ones, but you're not individually reacting with any of the coaches that are there. The biggest thing that I've seen, is your tape. Your highlights is what you're going to get recruited off of. You're not going to get recruited off stats. Just something from a football standpoint, I'm sure it's the same in other sports as well. As a coach, when I turn on the film, like as a football coach, I don't want to see slow motion. We see a lot of slow motion. I know a lot of coaches don't talk about huddle highlights. That doesn't do me any good. I want to see you running full speed. If you're on the soccer field, they want to see your speed relative to everyone else, not in slow motion. Make sure you're putting your best clips first. A lot of coaches have a short attention span. We're getting hundreds and hundreds of huddle highlights or whatever you may use, YouTube highlights a week. So we want to see those plays first, and make sure you're highlighting yourself. I don't know about other sports, but in football there's 22 guys out there. If you don't highlight yourself until middle of the play, I don't know what you did at the beginning of the play. And then another one Coach already talked about is your high school coach, or your AAU coach is a little bit different in other sports, but as a football coach, your high school coach is where I'm going to get most of my information from. They know you as a person as well as a player. They're going to know if you're putting on a front to me when I'm talking to you personally, whereas they may be like, he's not really like that in real life on a day-to-day basis. Next slide, please. Parent involvement. Again, much like Coach said, I want parents to come on my visits because they're going to ask better questions. And at our level, financials are obviously, we're not giving out full rides. We do offer athletic scholarships, but those are questions that are easier to cover in person and get questions and answers. Making sure you're on phone calls sometimes, because again, if that parent was there when the kid was talking to me doing dishes, he probably would have been doing dishes while he was talking to the college coach. And then just the support. Again, you're going to want to be there to support their decision. Ultimately, it's the student-athlete's decision. I've seen parents force them or persuade them to go a certain direction, and that doesn't always lead to success in the long term because the parents wanted them there. It doesn't mean the kid's going to want to be there when they're there all the time, 24/7, on their Last slide here. And then methods of communication. This has been talked about a lot. Most, at least in football, most people are going to reach out to their high school coach. So that's how we're going to make our initial contact and get our recruiting list and those type of things. And then there's a myriad of ways now, right? Twitter, some coaches really like Twitter, some coaches won't use it. I can tell you I get 50 DMs a day sometimes, so it's not always the best way to make an initial contact because your name may be the 38th on the Twitter list. Once you're talking to some coaches like it because your picture pops up, so it's easier for them to remember. So my best advice from a communication standpoint is find out what the coach that is recruiting you likes to talk to. I got coaches that like to Zoom all the time with recruits. I've met coaches that want a phone call. I've met coaches that like Twitter. I've met coaches that are old school and want to handwrite letters. That doesn't really happen much anymore. But I've also got guys that like email. So just find out what works for that coach and what they want to communicate with and try to adapt to that. Again, most of my stuff has been talked about, so I try to go pretty quick. Any questions for me specifically?
The communication that starts on football is younger.
I think it's going to depend on level. Like for me as a sprint football program, I don't really care what juniors are doing right now. I'm still trying to fill the roster of 2023s. When we're at the Division II level, you start talking to them when you're juniors, and then you're really ramping that recruiting up when they're going into their senior year. Division Is are going to start a little bit earlier, although there's some rules for when they can actually contact. And again, I think it's very sport specific. Again, football is kind of that's their timeline. I think again it depends on the level that you're at.
Thanks, Coach. Next slide here. So we thought it would be beneficial if you guys actually heard from some former collegiate athletes. Two of them actually graduated from Zoo Maldives and are former athletes of mine. So when I introduce them, I'll try not to screw up their last names because they're married now. But it's Jordan Sugar and Megan Epley, and then our school resource officer also donated his time tonight. Joe Gardner played baseball at Truman State. So if you guys want to come up and just kind of share your thoughts a little bit on the process from your perspective, and we'll continue on it. What's up? Yeah, why don't you tell them how'd you land where you landed, so where'd you play, and how did you ultimately make that decision?
So I wound up at St. Charles Community College, different route. My career path limited me to very little schools. I knew I wanted to be a dental hygienist early on. So I picked a school, I had offers to some universities, and that came down to my parents looking at me guys and saying, it's not going to pay the bills. And I was like, you are correct, it's not. So I chose the community college route, which I'm forever grateful for. It was a great route for academics, but I also played a huge role in the soccer program, and that was really big for me. I came here from East playing a decent role in soccer and my leadership, and I wanted to continue that. So to me, that was more important than just being a number, potentially playing a couple minutes. I wanted to be a big leader and have a big role in the program.
I went ahead and I kind of took a different route than Megan. I ended up at Lindenwood, which was D2 at the time. When I was a freshman, they were making the transition from NAIA to Division II, so it was a little weird. But ultimately, why I landed there was because I wanted to be a teacher. And believe it or not, there weren't a lot of schools that had great education programs, but I knew Lindenwood had a great program there. I could get my teaching certificate in the state of Missouri, which was something that was really important. And the other school that I was looking at did not have a very good education program, and I really wouldn't have ended up teaching in Missouri either, because that school was in Illinois. Since I was at the D2 level, my role in the team was a little bit different. Like Megan, we were both captains together at our time here at East, and then I went to Lindenwood, and I was a little bit more of a little fish, and I struggled with that at first, but I stuck it out all 4 years, and I finished strong, and I enjoyed my time there, but it was definitely different than what I had expected, but I did enjoy every minute of it.
So I had a little bit of background as well. I was a JUCO bandit. I played at St. Charles Community College as well, and then transferred to Truman State University. I wanted to play. Plain and simple. That's the only It's got to pay for the amazing campuses and all the opportunities that students get. And that's what led me to Truman. I didn't get any scholarship when I didn't go to Truman because Truman didn't pay much money there. Where I was going to pay a lot less in the long run to go to Truman State instead of going to a school such as Maryville, other places that are
One thing you wish you would have known about the process after you went through it, like if you could rewind, what was the one thing that you were like, man, I really wish I would have known?
One thing I wish I really would have known would be to market myself more. Obviously, like I was like hard-headed high school kid, wasn't the brightest. And I was like, man, baseball's gonna take me. Like, I'm good enough to win me. Like that's not the case. Like they said, they each have DMs, emails, hundreds of them a day. Like I really wish I would have put forth that effort to market myself. And like they said, you can send blanket emails. It's the same exact thing where you change the name of the school. Really not doing too much. I mean, you're starting a relationship. If you show interest in a school, they're going to show a little bit more interest in you.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off that, just being like my own biggest self-advocate, just putting yourself out there. I'm timid and I don't go out of my comfort zone very often, and this is definitely part of the process is getting out of your comfort zone. Like they said, allowing the coach, figuring out a way to make yourself stand out and not being afraid to do so, and like standing by that decision and not being embarrassed or worried about what other people are thinking. Just know you're doing what's best for yourself and not questioning it.
My advice would be to look at all schools. Don't pick a division and go with that. So I thought, hey, D2 is where I should be. I knew I wasn't a D1 athlete. I thought D2 was like that middle range. I didn't really thought I would fit in at NAIA, but now that I've been through everything, I wish I would have looked at those D3 NAIA schools because I think I would have played a little bit more, and I would have been a little bit more happy athletically. Academics was great, but I would have loved to play more, and that's kind of what I went to school to do, and that just didn't happen. So I played my senior year, but I wish I would have played a little bit more junior or sophomore, freshman.
All right, last question. Favorite part of the process? What did you enjoy the most?
I feel like my favorite part was just realizing how independent and responsible and dedicated I was to the sport. They've preached it all night where there's not many people who can say they were a student athlete, and it's something really to be proud of to make it to that level. And so I'd say that's my favorite part, that I actually made it there, and I was the reason I got there. I put myself out there, and I can say that I did that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and also kind of same way of giving my parents something even more to be proud of. Like they put the time and effort since, like for me, it was 4 or 5 years old. Soccer constantly. Seeing them, see me make something of it and it pay off is really cool to see as well and go through that process with them.
Like all the coaches have said, like you have to love the process because it is a full-time job. That's something that came with maturity. Like obviously you step on the field as a freshman. You're a freshman again. You are in every sense of that. You are a freshman again. Like for me, it was you're picking up deep balls, you're carrying buckets, you're doing all the grunt work that everyone else has already done when they were freshmen. So you got to really enjoy the process. And speaking more for me, like I was always wanted to like D1 or bust, kind of how it was. Truman led me to a lot of places. In 2015, we won the regional. Next we played in the Division II College World Series, which is it's awesome. I would have never thought I would have had that opportunity and let that be. But these are things that like, I didn't even think of. And it's the highlights of my life. And I still have best friends. I'm sure these two still have best friends that they grew up playing sports with, and especially in college.
All right, thank you. Our next person that we're going to hear from is Mr. Kent Beeks. His son just graduated, right?
Graduated in December.
Yep, there he is. I put him up there just so you guys had a visual. He was the long snapper for the University of Minnesota. So Mr. Weeks just wanted to share a few thoughts with you guys about what it's like from the parent perspective and give you some advice that way.
Very good. How many Fort Zumwalt graduates do we have here tonight? 1983 Fort Zumwalt graduate. What Fort Zumwalt, you say? There was only one Fort Zumwalt back then, so it was the Fort Zumwalt, not north, south, east, or west. Okay? A lot of, and I wish we would have this kind of communication, and thank you, Seth, for doing this, bringing it to the district, because having this in your back pocket as parents, as young student athletes in high school, this goes a long way, hearing from a wealth of knowledge, years and years and years of knowledge and experience coming to you personally right here. And if you can pass this along, pass this experience to other people within the district, right, to grow this experience, grow it. A few years, this is going to be packed. Okay? And that's just the way it will be. Okay? All right. So the perspective from a Fort Zumwalt graduate is, I was actually recruited at Division I, Northwestern University, Big Ten, right? And the recruiting process went a letter in the mail, snail mail, a phone call from a coach, and a knock at your door. That was the recruiting process, and maybe if you're lucky, you got an official visit. 5, it's still 5, right? Still like it's the same thing back then. Okay? So, having that perspective, my wife, she also played Division I volleyball. So our lens, our perspective is unique, coming from the district and being recruited, and then our son gets recruited for the Big Ten as well in a Division I process. But we had no idea at the time where he was going to land. So as a parent, we were thinking, he's good at what he does, we just don't know how good because of his physical maturity level. You are trying to predict a talent level from a parent perspective to start early to get your name out in the community, the coaching community. So what we did earlier in the process that you can start creating relationships, because recruiting is all relationships, period, end of story, okay, with the coaches. Coaches will move on. That is what they want to do. They want to move up. They want to better themselves, right? But no matter what level that you think you may be able to play at, you have to cover all your bases, I believe, as a parent. Start them at a young age and get their names into Division III, NAIA, Division II, FBS, FCS, you name it. Get it out there and establish that relationship early on and prove to those coaches what you're passionate about, right? Athletes, ask for your parents' help. Parents, include your athlete in the correspondence with the coaches, emails. I wasn't on Twitter. I despise social media. I retired 34-year law enforcement. I didn't like the way social media was headed whatsoever. I had to bite the bullet because our very first contact from a Division I coach, or any coach for that matter, was a DM on Twitter. And I was like, what in the world is a DM on Twitter? Right? And this was just maybe 2018, right? 2018, and I refused. I was like, okay, I gotta bite the bullet. I gotta do this. Because you want to monitor You want to monitor everything that goes along, right? With the context. Believe it or not, that was the very first coach was a DM on Twitter. It paid off. So some of the ways as a parent, how involved do you want to be? You heard from a lot of these coaches, they want you to be involved. The earlier you get started and the younger the athlete is, when you start your recruiting process, I believe that as they get older, they take more of the recruiting responsibility. When they're young, you handle a large portion of it, creating the mass emails, right, to the different coaches. Make sure you get the right coach at the right university and the right names on there. That's never good. Don't do that. But what I would suggest to you is when you're creating these emails or forms of communication, is that you cover your bases. Because you're predicting future talent. You don't know if it's going to be, you don't know how much, are they going to grow a foot and 100 pounds? Or are they maxed out where they are now? So I believe, and what I did is got with Brady and said, where do you think you can play? Do you think you can play here? Do you think you can play there? And then what you're doing is you're using that as a measuring stick to see what their confidence level is in themselves, number one, and then how determined are they going to be? What is their dreams, right? How high up do they want to go? Or, depending on their personality, wherever they want to stay. They want to go small town, they want to go mid-size, they want to go big city. It just depends. And that changes throughout the process of from 9th grade into graduation. They are no longer the same people as they were. I'm sure a lot of you have kids that are older and run the gamut. Totally different kids from start to finish. But if you cover your recruiting and create the relationships, pick a few dream schools, a few schools where, yep, I think that's where you're probably going to fit, and then some few quote-unquote fallback schools based on maybe academic requirements, something if you don't meet. So you're not just focusing on one extreme level during the recruiting process. A lot of different things that I was going to speak on. Going 7. I think we're covered. But one thing in my notes that I did have, it boiled down to 3 things. Fit equals, right? And I took this from Coach Flack, PJ Flack, academically, athletically, socially, and spiritually. Do those things fit? Does your child fit those 4 things? And those 4 things equal a program's culture. Now, some coaches and programs claim they have cultures, but when they ask, what is your culture, they can't describe it. If they use the word culture to describe culture, then they really don't have a culture, right? And it's a buzzword these days. Basically, a culture is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So coaches, how you do one thing, how you show up for a meeting, how you show up to school, how you look, how you dress. You have long hair, since we're tired, so it's okay. Do you look like you just rolled out of bed, right? How you do one thing is how you do everything. These coaches, they see that. Washing dishes during a conversation, maybe not good. Washing dishes, fantastic, right? So that's a double-edged sword there. I was like, oh, dishes, that's great. Maybe not during the conversation. So I can boil it down to, so it was the fit, academically, athletically, socially, spiritually. 2, never forget, high school coaches matter. Sometimes, as parents, we're putting our kids into camps, into testing camps, to combine camps, trainers specialize this, specialize that. Coaches aren't going to them. You know why? They might refer to them or hear a name or something or by reputation, but they're not going to those personal trainers. You know why? Those personal trainers don't have access to their academic record. They cannot help them get them released. They cannot get their grades released. Okay? It may be a good athletic reference, but never, ever, ever forget the importance of your son's relationship with his coaching staff at each level. Okay? Very, very, very big, because that is going to be your coaches, your college coaches are going to have, they're going to listen to what your high school coach says for character reasons. Right? The film is going to speak for itself. But always, always, always remember to keep the relationship with your high school coaches. Right? Parents, be involved, not too involved. Right? You want to show you care, but they don't want you to care too much. And probably, yeah, I've got so much out. But the third thing I'm going to get back to, in your recruiting process, once everything kind of shakes out to the end, you created your letters, you went through some of the recruiting process, and you're still trying to figure out what's the best fit. I always remember this. Who wants you first wants you most. Who wants you first wants you most. Who reaches you, who recognizes you and your son's talents or daughter's talents, they're the ones that recognize you first and will probably believe in you first. They believe in you first and they'll believe in you last. Like I said, I'm retired now, and I would be very happy to field any questions. I'll give you my phone number if anybody wants it. 636-248-7001. And if there's absolutely anything I can do to advance, help you make a decision, or give you kind of any information whatsoever, it is my passion, right? I am retired. I have nothing else to do. All right? But I absolutely look forward to hearing from some of you. Lance Anderson right there. Long snapper, really good long snapper. Hopefully they'll take after my son and go to University of Minnesota. And not that I would ever try to recruit him for that, but very talented young man. Anyway, does anybody have any questions? I'm not going to stop until I get a question. Come on.
Did you go to Northwestern?
I did. I played football there. 2 years, blew my knee out, transferred to Southeast Missouri State. I had to sit out of there. That's a whole other portal. That's a whole other transfer portal. That's a whole other can of worms. But having that different perspective was very beneficial through this entire process. I see you're on the edge of your seat. I'm going to get the hook. Here comes the hook.
All right, thank you very much. We have one more, kind of like I was saying to Mr. Russ over here.